Have you ever had a dream? A dream that you just wanted to set your mind to? A dream that you couldn't give up on? A dream that seemed impossible to achieve, but because you wanted it so badly, it didn't seem so far? I have. Hello, my name is Caitlyn Barnes, and I'm a senior at Frisco High School. I am here today to tell you about my journey through ISM and to fulfill my calling of becoming a youth minister. First, I will tell you a little bit about myself and how I became into the ISM program. Next, I will explain why I wanted to study youth ministry. And finally, I will reveal my journey this far and my knowledge that I've gained throughout the experience. So, like I mentioned briefly before, I am Caitlyn Barnes. I am a part of Student Council, I'm a part of Climate Committee, I'm a part of Kindness Counts, School Spirit Board, Frisco Varsity Club, National Honor Society, and finally ISM. So here's a quote that I wanted to share with y'all. This is something that I kind of look at whenever I'm doubting myself. It's a verse from 1 Timothy. It says, "Do not let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for behavior and speech and conduct and love and faith and in purity. Until I come, devote yourself to the public reading of Scripture, to preaching and teaching. Do not neglect your gift, which was given to you by prophecy when your body was elder and laid their hands on you. Be delighted in these matters. Give yourself wholly to them, so that everybody may see your progress. Watch your life and your doctrine closely. Perceive them, because if you do, you will save both yourself and your hearers." And this is kind of something that whenever I first decided if I was going to become a youth minister or not, I kind of reflected on this, and that was kind of just like a sure okay. That was kind of one of my signals that I felt that I heard from God. So that's always kind of helped me. So, for those of you who don't know what ISM is, you're probably really confused why you're here. An ISM program is not like any other. I feel like we're really privileged to have this program in our school district. It is a chance for high school students to learn more about their topic. And with extended research, and you produce stuff from your mentor that you gain knowledge about, and you further your knowledge that you already have over the topic and try to extend it to the best of your abilities. And the only way this could have possibly happened is the beautiful Coach Goff. My encounter with ISM was out of pure determination. The moment I found out about this class during junior year, I knew that I had to be in it. I was entering that library, and I was very, very nervous, but I just felt the love radiating from Coach Goff, even though I was fairly intimidated. With shaking hands, I tried to do my best with that interview, and somehow or another I made it through. So, we're here today. I feel like whenever you're a kid, or you're going on to your senior year, it's like everyone's automatic question is to ask you, where are you going to school? What are you going to do? What are you going to major in? And they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm like, I haven't even grown up yet. I don't know what I want to do. So senior year hits in high school, and it's an obligation from all of your friends to just bombard you with this question that seems to overwhelm most of us. And with the help of this class, that question began to be a little easier to answer. Ever since I was growing up, as a little girl, I have always loved, there's supposed to be a picture there, whatever. I'd always loved going to Sunday school. And my parents were the ones who were making me go, and at first it was always just Sunday school that I was looking forward to, but then when I upgraded to big kid church, that was not so fun. And I decided that I wasn't going to like church, and that it was going to be really boring, and I was going to throw a fit every single time that we left the house. But when I went on a summer camp trip, I decided to give my life over to Christ, and then decided to enjoy the whole church experience a little more. And whenever my parents would say, oh, well, we can't make it to church this weekend, I would genuinely be upset, because it was like something that I found really fun. And with my friends, it was kind of a weird thing that we had like a competition of who would go to church more that week, and whoever won was like the cool kid on the block. So yeah, that was pretty fun. So within a church, you're kind of born into a church family, and becoming a church family is a way that you can share your gifts and have your faith journey together, and that's something that you don't really get a lot in different places. But I also forgot to mention that my actual family has been pretty blessed by God's hands. My sister is a singer in Nashville at a church called Long Hollow with her husband, and they just do amazing work there for that church. My dad is planning on becoming a local youth minister whenever he retires. A local minister whenever he retires. And my mom just has an act for just listening and hearing people and just genuinely wants to have a lot to do with what's going on in people's lives, not just for the benefit of her own, but to genuinely help people and just get people to a better place than they are in that particular time. So this leads me to the whole reason that I thought of youth ministry as a career. And I shadowed Taylor Ogden Thomas. She's the youth minister of Church of the Resurrection in Leawood, Kansas. And it was just an assignment for an 8th grade class that it was like career day, and I was just thinking of any possible way to do something fun and not have to think and just be myself and be goofy and weird. And so I called up Taylor Ogden Thomas and I was like, hey, can I come and be your little shadow for the day? And she was like completely fine with it, and we were having so much fun and just cleaning out closets and like playing games, and it was just really fun. And then they kind of took me back to the offices, and we learned more about the scripture readings and how the offices were running and what programs to use when developing Bible studies. And that was something that I was just like, I found that really cool, and that was really special to me. And then we actually developed like some sermon series that was going to be used in that section of the Wednesday night services. So that was pretty cool since it's a pretty big church. So I used that moment, and I kind of realized that my whole life was changing as an 8th grader, and I didn't quite understand that at the time, but now looking back, that was completely when it happened. Fast forward to today, and I'm 18 years old, and I'm still fired up about what I learned in 8th grade, and I'm preaching to teens across the world, and I owe it to this class and to Taylor for making this happen. So I've accomplished a lot of things in my first semester of ISM. Most of it came from my first interviews. I had a lot of this, and it was a lot of crazy business, but it seems really weird whenever you have a teenager calling you up asking you, hey, can I interview for this class? And it's like, you're 18 years old and I'm 45. Like, shouldn't it be the other way around? But this class is just full of surprises, so. I don't know why the pictures aren't showing up, but that's okay. I had the privilege and the honor to have my first interview to be with Kanan Chapman from Prestonwood Baptist, and he is by far one of the most educated people in the field. He is so gracious and just so overwhelmingly just joyful and happy and rambunctious, and he just had everything to do with me, and I was like, I don't know why you care so much, like, you're so nice for even taking this time to be with me, but it was just a really amazing experience. He taught me a lot about just fundamentals of the field and what I should be expecting, and kind of the biggest question for kids that want to come into ministry, or people who want to come into ministry, is like, why me? Why should I do this? This is for other people. Couldn't be me. But he kind of just reassured me that everyone has their doubts, and if you're really doubting it that bad and you don't think it's where you need to be, then don't, but just continue to pray about it. And I did. And I still feel at ease ever since that conversation. I don't think that would have happened as quickly as it did had I not talked to him. So I was really appreciative of that. And something really cool about this interview was that I had the opportunity to take home 6 books that he gave me, and I'm on my 3rd one right now, and it's just amazing stuff about other people's callings and general stuff you should know, like how to develop lesson plans and just how to give advice to questions that you don't particularly know, and it's just really cool. So I was really gracious for him to give me that. Second interview I held was with Jenna Morrison. She's from Rockwall United Methodist Church, and she was actually one of the youth ministers coming into my home church, but she kind of left right whenever I moved here. But she was super gracious to me. She was the only female minister that I spoke to, which was really cool to experience because not a lot of ministers nowadays are female. So I thought, what a great opportunity to take that chance and talk to her about just how it is to be a female in ministry and how we get treated different, or if we get treated different, or are there different ways that I should approach things with just problems and anything. She had so much advice for me, and she referred me to a bunch of other women in ministry and a few of her professors at SMU that she had when she was going through seminary. She's actually currently a missions minister at Rockwall, but whenever she was a youth minister, she gave me all the advice and all the love that she could have, so I was really thankful for that. We don't really need to go over him, but I guess we will, because he's my mentor that I chose for this year. His name is Christopher Vaughn. He's from Grace Avenue United Methodist Church, and he is by far the best person on the planet. No, I'm kidding. Okay, the past summer I worked for him as an intern at Grace Avenue, and that was just a completely different experience that I've ever gone through in my whole entire life. He let me lead kids to Tyler, Texas, and to just go on this mission trip, and it was like one of the most craziest things I've ever done, but I'm so glad I did it, and it just really helps me understand the energy, the physical and mental energy that goes into youth ministry, but it is by far worth it. Since my youth minister held this meeting with me, we had a little bit more to talk about. So this meeting lasted for about 3 hours, but we got off topic a few times, but then we came back, and he taught me a lot in this interview about how ministers tend to cover the same subject within the scripture per week in the United Methodist Church, so that if you are to move into a different church or go to, say, Tennessee for a church service, that they're going to be reading the same scriptures, might not necessarily be the same topic or the same devos that they're going through, but it's the same scripture. And if you attend church for about 3.5 years, you will have read the whole Bible. So I thought that was really interesting. So we had a few people crash our meeting, and it was Chrisabel Humer, which is one of the interns that I worked with over summer, and she is just the sweetest girl ever, and she was giving me a hard time, but then enlightened me on a few other aspects of youth ministry that she got to learn that I didn't necessarily learn with her. And then the head minister, Billy Eccles-Richter, came in and just sat with us for a minute, and he runs this church with his wife, so I was like asking him how that works, and like, are there boundaries, and are there other things that like necessarily working with a normal, per se, employee that you can't necessarily say with a wife working with you. So I learned a lot about that, and they're doing really well with their church. Next up, we had Steve Garrison. He's the youth minister for First United Methodist at Frisco, and I learned a few tools from him. Is that you kind of just you don't want to avoid problems whenever they occur. You want to make sure that parents know everything. And he reminded me that email was your friend, and that you want to just email the parents as much as you can, make sure that they're updated with everything that's going on, to avoid upsets if they didn't see that there was a mission trip coming up, or that there was programs, or just make sure that parents are kind of more responsible with that stuff, so kind of get to know the parents, use them, they're your friend, they're not your enemy. And last but not least, I got to interview Will Perry, and he was my very last interview. He was a very interesting person, but we kind of see differently in our ways that we would want to minister to kids, but I loved seeing his side of it. It was very cool. He talked to me about having like 12 of your closest students and to kind of use them as like recruiters in a way to just kind of get people in the door, whether it's for good reasons or not, they're going to stay or whatever, just to see if they even like it. And I wouldn't have thought of that originally, so that was something really cool that he had exposed me to. And he also suggested using other people's experiences as your own, and I thought that was pretty interesting as well. But the last thing that I took from this interview is that even though maybe I wouldn't have seen something in the same perspective as someone else, that there's always room to shift the way your mind works and how you see things. And so I thought that was pretty interesting, that even though we wouldn't approach things the same way, that stuff still gets done. One of the big things we do in ISM is research assessments, which is by far the most fun thing you get to do, is sit on a computer and type up about just research papers and all the stuff that you've studied. So my first my first assessment was the Career Outlook Assessment, and this was a general assessment that all students had to do. And so I learned that my pay would be $48,500, but then I talked to my mentor and he said, in what world? So I'm going to expect to be going down and then coming up, because apparently that's a stretch. But a thing that I learned is that there's not necessarily a college requirement. You don't have to study a specific field in order to become a youth minister. However, if you want to become like an ordained minister, you have to go through seminary. But as of like regular college, you don't have to study something in a particular field. And then I learned a bunch of duties and responsibilities, and it was a lot more than I had expected, so that was really good to know. My first research assessment was about suicide in youth groups, because there was a kid at my old church who had committed, and I was just kind of confused about like what if that happened to my youth group. Like I feel like I should be prepared if that was an instance that, heaven forbid, happened. So something primarily learned was being persistent with the families, just making sure that everyone's okay, and just make sure that everyone knows that you are there for them no matter what. Social media, kind of keep all the information off. You want to keep the students informed about what happened or what's happening with the family, but you don't want it to go on social media, because it's not really the world's problem, but it's that group's problem. And to take care of yourself, and that's something that I wouldn't have originally thought of, but you're caring so much for all these other people, and you need to remember to focus on yourself. The research assessment number 2 was how to build your own youth ministry. That kind of seemed a little important, so I thought I would tackle that one. A big thing that wasn't too much of a surprise was managing time, creating a mission statement so that whenever you go a couple years in and you can go back and reevaluate yourself, how am I doing, how is this running, is this what we stand for, kind of deal. And don't push the easy button, even though it might be the faster route. Just keep pushing yourself, keep striving to be the best that you can be, and hire wisely. You want to make sure that if people don't work with you well, to either learn how to work with those adversities, or if it's just too much, just say no. Research assessment number 3 was our trip to UNT. This was by far one of the coolest experiences that I would not have had without ISM. We took a class trip to UNT and observed in 3 or more classes. I only got to do 3, but I sat in on physiology of self, psychology of women, and sociology of spirit. And those classes really prepared me for kind of something that I'm going to be sitting in on as a real student in college next year. So I was really fortunate to kind of observe how professors work with students and how the students interact in the class. So that was really interesting. Research assessment number 4 was developing lesson plans. And this was kind of something similar that I found on a teaching website, but then I kind of, in a way, realized that ministering to people is like teaching. So you just things click all the time. So I found out that you need to kind of set an outline and find a topic that you feel is relevant to the kids, or if someone has asked you a hard question, to kind of put that into a lesson plan and kind of develop on that and research into that so that their question eventually gets answered. Correlate games and lessons that go along with it, so their brains are already thinking of like, what is this actually about, instead of the actual physical part of the game. It means more, and the topics are applicable so they can go out and use it in their everyday life. So sitting in ISM, we set goals for ourselves that are achievable by measure and not by us just thinking we can do it. So I sat down with my mentor, Christopher, and he decided that he wanted us to create a Bible study themed on the movie Inside Out, which I thought was really cool. And he wanted us to learn more about the scriptures, and that's really important, and I'll explain why in a minute. Let me do a Sunday night by myself, which I'm really excited and nervous about, but I'm so ready for that day to happen, and create a devotional with him, which is my final product that I'll share with y'all in a minute. So this is the kind of theory on the Inside Out Bible study, and so he kind of explained to me that every kid is going through something different in their life at this very moment, and that includes in this room. Not everyone is feeling joyful. Some people might be sad that they have to listen to this speech, or disgusted with what I'm talking about, but it's just really applicable to, it's just, everyone's gonna be going through something else, and we just need to apply and make sure we recognize everyone's different emotions and what's going on. So it's a 5-week study, since there are 5 feelings on the board, but it's going to be really cool, and I can't wait to kind of dissect that. Okay, so why is it important for Christians to read their scripture? I'll explain. Statistically speaking, this was a poll written about 5 years ago, I think. It was like 88% of people own a Bible, but only 61% wish they read it. And then 45% claimed that they read a Bible weekly, but then when asked to recall things, they had drawn a blank. And I thought that was funny, because I just think it's funny. So why is it important for Christians to read their scriptures? Does anyone know just like famous, like, not famous, but like recalled on Bible verses, like most popular Bible verses? Anyone? I'm so glad you said Philippians 4:13, because I'm going to tell you about it. I'm just going to tell you all about it. People take scripture out of context, and this was one of the last meetings that I went in with Christopher about, and it was just like mind blown. So here you go. Ready? So this is actually about Paul, and he was a tax collector, and he was taxing people on more than was required, so that was bad. No. So he gets put in jail, but not only because he was taxing people on a higher wage than they should have been, but because he was realizing that what he was doing was wrong, and he decided that he was going to convert to Christianity because he liked what people were doing. And so he kind of turned into a person that was like, hey, I'm going to go build a church, I'm going to give you this rule sheet, but peace out, I'm going to this other church, I'm going to build this one, and I'm going to come back and check on you in like 15 years and see how you're doing. So this was like a letter that he had, oh, by the way, if you're a Jew preaching on Christianity, that was really bad, so he got put in jail. So he's writing letters to a church in Philippi, and he's writing to them about like how they're doing and what they're doing wrong and all this stuff. And so he quotes, and it says, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. But most people take that in context of like, oh, I can go hike up this mountain, or I can run this marathon, or I can be Tim Tebow and write it under my eyes and be on Sports Illustrated, and that's cool. But he's actually saying in the deepest, darkest moments of your spirit and of your soul that you can do all things through Christ that gives you, like, you can achieve things, you can get out of dark places, but it's not necessarily a physical action, but an action in your mind, because he was in prison. That was a dark place in his life. And then my last goal was Sunday night. I get to preach by myself, and that entails a lot more detail than I had initially thought. And so I have to provide food and a relevant theme. That's kind of my deal, is like relevance, because some of the the services, thank you, gosh, that I've been through, it's just like in one ear out the other, because it doesn't apply to me, which sounds horrible, but I try to not do that. But I just really want to make sure that my theme is relevant to what kids are going through. And thinking of good games to play, songs for worship, a good topic, and then you have to make sure that your small group leaders show up, because if they don't, then you have to sit in on them and make sure that the small groups are going okay, keep kids on task, and just keep reaching, keep pushing, and making sure everything's going right. So for my goals as overall in ISM, I wanted to be a better example of what a Christian looks like. I want to create a devotional that keeps teens with real life struggles and learning about ministry as much as I can. So this was my original work. I'm developing a devotional with Christopher Vaughn to kind of relate kids' emotions back into this book, and what that means is like gathering their stories of their deepest, darkest moments and then putting it into a book and letting people know that they're not alone in that moment. Like, even though like all these horrible things happen to us, we kind of seclude ourselves and push other people away, but we're supposed to love each other in those moments and come and help people in those moments, but we push people away and we feel like we're alone. But in doing this, I've realized that my deepest, darkest moments look a lot like other people's, so that's kind of comforting in a way to know that I have other people that I can go to that kind of know what that feeling has been like and know what that time or that place looked like. So that's something I wanted to make available to other people so they can realize that they're not alone either. So this is kind of this is the first page. This is my story. That's what it looks like. It's just one page, not too much writing, because people get distracted easily. And we're trying to focus on doing text reminders in like the middle of the week that makes it easy for you to remember like what you were reading on that Sunday, and so you can just remember and try to apply it to your life as much as you can. This is my mission statement. Again, it kind of ties me back to what I believe in as an ISM student when I came in, and I hope that I can be better than this person that I described whenever I leave. Thank you for watching.